I'm Thad Brown, this is Carl Jones, and you are watching and listening to Let's Talk Ball, the weekly breakdown of the Bills via the X's and O's and the All-22. This will obviously be the last one of these we do this year because the Bills season is over after a 27-10 loss to the Bengals. Carl, there's a ton to get to in this game. Let's start right on offense, with the quarterback, Josh Allen. And I walked away from this game thinking there were a lot of things wrong with this game. Josh Allen wasn't great, but he wasn't necessarily one of them. And I got to back off of that a little bit. I didn't think Josh Allen had the game you needed him to have, even with all the stuff happening around him. Look, very first play of the game, there's a lot of talk afterward about how confusing the Bengals blitzes were, and they were. And we're going to talk about how good the defensive game plan was. But first play of the game, Mike Hilton, the nickel corner, is lined up attached to the formation on the right, basically sending up smoke signals that say, I am about to blitz. The Bills had two guys who were basically check down options. Isaiah McKenzie left, Devin Singletary out of the backfield right. I think the first read was to Stefon Diggs with a short little hook at 5 yards. Give the Bengals credit. The Bills have done that a lot. They took that away. Josh from there progressed to McKenzie, basically throwing into where the coverage was. McKenzie gets 2 yards. To his right, where the blitz was coming from, Devin Singletary's wide open for what would have easily been a first down. And the decisions that were not too good continued throughout the game. People talked a lot about in the third quarter, the 3rd and 2 bomb to Gabe Davis. And yes, that was a fine decision, a ball that Davis should have caught. But the two previous plays before that, Dawson Knox is open for chunk plays, and Josh Allen throws away from him on both plays. So Allen did a good job of, like he always does, making plays with his feet, extending plays, connecting on balls. But there were multiple occasions where there were, decisions made that I thought were poor. And as the game wore on, as the Bills' offensive line had trouble with blitzes, had some early trouble with the pass rush. We'll talk about that in a minute too. I thought Allen got jittery to the point where the moment he saw a white jersey, whatever the structure of the play was, it was done. And the best example was the very last relevant play of the game, 4th and 6. Stefon Diggs had been doubled the whole game, as he's been getting done, has been done to him like the last 5 weeks in a row, whatever it was. On that play, he gets singled up in a man coverage. And shockingly, Stefon Diggs wins. He's open for a touchdown. But because Josh Allen is freaked out about some guy who for a brief second had a straight line to him from 7 yards away that the offensive line later covered, Allen stopped going through progressions. It became a free-for-all, and all he could do was try and fling one at Gabe Davis. So, look, Allen wasn't problem number one. We start with him because he's the quarterback, but he was a problem in this game.
Yeah, I don't think he didn't help out their causes in any way. Shout out to the Bengals defensive coordinator for the things that he did in terms of disguising things.
Lou Anarumo was awesome, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. There was one play where actually Allen did check it down to Dawson Knox for like a 5 or 6 yard gain, but it was a mugged up look where the Bengals are giving you the illusion that they're bringing the house and it's cover 0, but then they bail out of it at the snap and get into a cover 2 look. Allen thinks it's still man and checks it down to Dawson Knox, who almost gets his clock cleaned on the other side by the nickel. So that was just like a small illustration of like what the Bengals did defensively the entire game. Just Josh never looked comfortable. And sometimes that's when he's at his best, when he is chaotic and when he is running around, making plays, running guys over, hurdling people. But in this game, the Bengals didn't give you those opportunities to do that down in and down out. I mean, you got nickels coming free, you got defensive ends doing stunts or just flat out beating their guys in front of them. And look, for all of the great things that Josh Allen does, I didn't think he did a good job processing things post-snap, which the guy on the other side of the sidelines, Joe Burrow, did a phenomenal job post-snap where it didn't matter what the Bills threw at him defensively, he still found the counter to what the play call was. So, look, I understand that we live in this Josh Allen experience where the highs are so high, we're going to ignore some of the lows. And look, I get it. The lows in this game weren't turnovers, but sometimes you need your guy, the guy that you rely on, the guy that you're going to, go into battle with, and he's leading the charge. I need him to play above and beyond. And in this game, he just didn't do so for a variety of reasons.
And above and beyond sometimes can be taking the 5-yarders over and over, making the right calls as opposed to hitting the big plays, the game-changing plays. But beyond that, let's give credit to Cincinnati. Both sides of the ball, this team was prepared. On defense, I thought they did a great job. If I'm playing against Josh Allen, I think what you have to do is keep changing the looks up. Sometimes they'd rush 4. They brought zone blitzes. They brought defensive backs from deep. They did a really nice job of hiding blitzes. And I think the thing they did that gets underrated in this game is that when they blitzed, they knew who then to come down on and cover as a receiver. They knew what hot guy Josh Allen would probably look to. And this is not an offense that runs a lot of hot reads, not without Cole Beasley. They did it last year with him, not so much this year. So they were very prepared, and the way they executed, I was impressed with top to bottom.
I mean, everything about what they did. You know, sometimes they did dare the guys to go win a one-on-one. And Dawson Knox, I did believe, converted a third and medium against Eli Apple on the sidelines. And then other times, they would give you that zone look where Josh is like, you know, he's patting on the ball, and then now he just wants to take off and scramble. And, I mean, that Bengals defense, they may not have, like, some of the studs that you see in the NFC or a Chris Jones that the Chiefs has, or even a Von Miller. But they have a bunch of guys that execute the game plan and trust that what their coaches present in front of them. Because, look, there's no reason to why they have Eli Apple and whoever the hell is the other corner.
Yeah.
I know Jesse Bates is an all-pro type of guy, but the safety next to him isn't that.
The secondary is not good individually. I agree.
Logan Wilson is a solid linebacker, but nothing to write home.
He might be better than that.
Yeah, but he isn't Fred Warner or Matt Milano.
For sure.
And for that defense to execute that game plan, hold that offense to 10 points on the road. Look, I understand the Bills play poorly. All three, where do you want to go? The offensive coordinator, up front, the weapons, Allen. But sometimes you got to tip your cap and say, look, you guys just out-coached us and outplayed us, and up front, out-physical us as well.
Yeah, up front, too. Trey Hendrickson was quicker than I thought. Deion Dawkins, I mean, he's got some speed, Hendrickson. Deion Dawkins did not have a great game first half. And I'll say this about the offensive line. I thought first half there were lots of issues. Roger Saffold had 2 or 3 where you wondered if he even attempted a block, you know, on a pass play. Deion Dawkins had trouble with Hendrickson. I thought in the second half the O-line was better. Throughout the game, they had trouble with blitzes, and we were talking about this here. You know, picking up blitzes, understanding who's got what has been an issue for this offensive line for a while now. It was no different in this game. But I really thought in the second half, on the whole, they played okay. It wasn't a disaster. You know, it looked bad because the Bengals scheme was just that good. Receiver-wise, you know, there were 2 or 3 plays where Dawson Knox got singled up and just didn't do anything. You know, and you need more. They needed more from all their secondary weapons all year long. But your tight end that you paid at the beginning of the year, and we've hit that on this point more than once, this was another game where he had opportunities and couldn't make plays. The third and goal play on the first possession of the second half, you know, he's not singled up, but, you know, that's a play where, you know, Travis Kelce probably finds a way to get open, you know, and Knox was even close. You know, now and he and Josh Allen weren't even on the same page with the throw. But, you know, over and over, your secondary weapons didn't make a play. People saw the Gabe Davis drop. You know, he wasn't great either. You know, Cole Beasley, Khalil Shakir, you know, these are guys that you need to count on in like a 4th and 5th wide receiver role. They weren't, you know, up to the task of being a primary contributor on this offense.
Not at all. And we talked about it ad nauseum here. Outside of Stephon Diggs, I don't know if I'm lining across from someone as a defensive back or even a linebacker who strikes fear in me. And look, if down in and down out, I can double team your number 1 receiver and not care about the results. And look, and don't get it twisted. When you double a receiver, not only are you singling up everyone else, you're also not accounting for the quarterback in the run game. So for the fact that they had enough confidence for their front 4 to contain Josh and not allow him to, you know, scramble for 20, 30 yards, those crazy plays that he makes, that says a lot, once again, about the discipline of those guys, that DC, because at no point did the Bengals look as if they were in the wrong spot. It just looked as if, all right, the Bills got us on this play, we'll come back to the next one. On the other side, though, obviously, there were a bunch of plays where the Bills DBs can't say the same.
Right.
I just loved everything about what they did, and they used what the Bills like to do against them. The Bills like to live in that, you know, on the edge, out of structure, you know, never, you know, that's how they play, like explosive plays. And the Bengals said, all right, we dare you guys to do that down in and down out while you got pressure in your face, while you got to communicate on the fly with this nickel coming from 8 yards deep. And boy, they did not deliver in that regard.
We were talking about this before we started our recording here about what the Bills offense did in this game. And, you know, not only was all their success out of structure, the whole game felt out of structure because it didn't feel like, as you were saying, the Bills offense did not dictate in this game.
No, not at all. It felt as if Ken Dorsey, Josh Allen up front, the guys, all 11 guys on the field, it felt as if they were taking the punches instead of taking the fight to the Bengals defense. It felt as if you guys want to blitz, we'll figure out a way to combat that, right? Instead of just, you know what, we have an answer for everything you want to do. It felt as if they were waiting for the Bengals to do something. Like, no, play the game on your terms. On the other side of the ball, and I know we keep talking about what the Bengals did on offense, but it felt as if Joe Burrow never felt uncomfortable. He always knew where to go if the Bills were going to do this defensively. And Josh Allen and everyone, this isn't just a Josh Allen issue. I know he's the one with the ball in his hands, but you have to set him up for success. You have to give him enough time, and he has to know where to go with the ball and also just deliver the ball. And it never felt as if the Bills were punching back. It felt as if they were in that ring just taking punches, and hopefully they were going to stand up at the end and have enough fight in them instead of fighting back.
Or just wildly flail and happen to catch something. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, and when you brought this up before, it made me think of when Brian Dable was the offensive coordinator. He said for years, you know, people would be like, what's your identity? He's like, well, our identity is going to be different every week because we're going to change the game plan based on what teams did. And that's all well and good most of the time, but it felt like the Bills took that idea to such an extreme in this game. It was like they'd snap the ball and wait and see what the Bengals were doing, and then they'd decide what they're going to do on offense. And you can't just live that way. At some point, you need to say, okay, we're better than you here and here. This is where we're going to try and win. And they didn't have, and really, you know, the other part of it might be the only answer they have there is Josh Allen scrambling and Stephon Diggs down the field. And teams took away Diggs by doubling him, and the Bengals did a good job with rush lanes. You know, I never once, you know, thought there was a spot where, wow, Josh could have scrambled here, you know, and gotten 30 yards. They were prepared, you know, and you know, they never really blitzed a ton of people for the most part to where you'd leave guys down the field. Didn't play a ton of man either.
Right.
You know, that's where you get burned on quarterback runs. Guys have their backs turned to the quarterback. They were in zone most of the game, which is what they primarily do anyway. So they had the right formula for making sure, you know, the Bills didn't hit those rushing 30 and 20-yard chunks that Josh Allen will get sometimes. But, you know, Ken Dorsey, I didn't hate the game plan,
Right.
but it seemed very vanilla. They ran 11 personnel the whole game just about, and there wasn't anything varied. There wasn't the answers, and certainly wasn't the solutions to where you ever thought this offense got anything going.
And that goes back to maybe the personnel that he was given, you know, a little bit. Sometimes, you know what, my quarterback, he's not seeing things right. Let's just run the ball for a couple plays to get us back on track. And they did, I believe, in the second quarter have a couple plays for like 5-yard gains and get a first down. But since they don't have an identity outside of the chaotic, out-of-structure stuff, they never could go anything and be like, all right, let's put the car back in 30 real fast, get off the freeway, and we'll be fine. No, they're always at 65.
Right.
And right now, and in that game, they lost 2 tires. They couldn't have a rearview mirror. They were just out there flying around, not caring about anything in the world. And I understand, you know, I didn't agree with everything that Dorsey presented, but sometimes I got to deal with what I'm given. And you don't have a reliable number 2. The upfront situation wasn't great in terms of blitz pickup. Quarterback wasn't great at seeing things post-snap. What do you expect me to do in terms of easy access throws?
They lived this year on Josh Allen being better than the other teams they were facing. And when they finally got to a team that he wasn't better than or couldn't just be better than, it all fell apart. All right, let's move to the other side of the ball. And let's start with the quarterback there and kind of how the Bills dealt with Joe Burrow, or really how Joe Burrow dealt with the Bills. Yeah, I mean, because, you know, everything that Joe Burrow did in this game was machine-like. You know, he constantly had the right read. He constantly was going to the right receiver. The other thing that impressed me about Joe Burrow, he delivers the ball early. I mean, there were 4 or 5 or 6 throws where he is starting to throw before the receiver has even begun a break. And that's why, you know, people said after the game, I saw a lot of people complaining about, well, the Bills played too much off coverage. Well, they didn't really play that much of it. The problem is that whatever space the Bills gave, Burrow took it because the ball's out of his hands before anybody could react. You know, and there was a 3rd and 10 play to Boyd where the Bills looked like they were in a man look. Taron Johnson drops back. I don't know if it's cover 3 or cover 2, but either way, he had the deep half third, whatever it was. And he also had the number 2 receiver, the middle receiver of the trips. So that receiver was Boyd. So when Taron drops back to a 20, 25-yard depth like he's a safety, Boyd just runs up to the first down marker, turns around, and the ball was a third of the way there by the time he turned around. There were defensive players, Tremaine Edmonds and Trey White, I think, to either side of Boyd, but they didn't have time to collapse because the ball is just out so fast. So, you know, beyond that, the game plan was fantastic, and we'll get into the run game a little bit. But even during the game on the field, I was blown away by how machine-like the Bengals were. And not just that they were good at taking the short gains, the easy stuff, but they didn't screw it up. There were no holding penalties. And I rewatched, there were maybe 2 or 3 plays where I'm like, that could have been called. There wasn't much of that. Very few of the false starts. They got the play in, they got it called, they got the line of scrimmage early. Burrow got a chance to see the defense every single time. And that's what, you know, again, we're at the level now. This is the Final Four team. This is what Final Four teams do. They don't do dumb stuff like Miami did, not knowing it's 4th down. You know, they were able to do it over and over and over.
He looks so much like 12, man. He looks a lot like Brady.
Well, it's just because they operate the same way, you know.
But that machine-like, knowing what the defense is presenting, and look, let me backtrack a bit. I'm not comparing Joe Burrow to
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. But in terms of pre-snap and post-snap and always feeling like he's in charge. Like that play you're talking about, I think Boyd was like at 6 yards down the field, wasn't even ready to turn around. Joe Burrow hit his back foot and said, oh, yep, I know where to go with the ball. That is absurd because I don't know how he knew that was the look. And just a phenomenal quarterback in that regard. And also knowing that, you know what, the guys around me may not be my normal 5. You know, he was down 3 offensive linemen. And I understand the Bills didn't give him a ton of pressure anyways, but still psychologically, you do know that these aren't your normal guys in front of you.
Right.
For him to still be composed and poised back there, always, it never felt as if Burrow went the wrong place. You know, Taron Johnson made a hell of a PBU down the field one play. Dane Jackson had a good PBU early on in the game. But it never felt as if, Burrow, what were you thinking here? Now, granted, I know this is one game. I'm sure Burrow has made that mistake in the past. But in this game, shout out to Zach Taylor and the Bengals offensive staff for getting them prepared for everything that the Bills were going to throw at them. Because I understand people saying the Bills play passive in the secondary a lot. No, I think the Bills had some bad coverage busts. But in the same token, how do you want me to play aggressive if the guys up front aren't going to win?
Right.
Because if I'm aggressive and the guys up front aren't going to win,
you're going to get the Hayden Hurst touchdown over and over.
We're going to get – it's going to be 50-yard bombs down the field every single play, and this is the wrong team to do that against because I have Jamar Chase, a small forward on the other side, and then Tyler Boyd. So without, you know, the pass rush and the prerequisite to go affect Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow just had his way with him because of everything that was going on.
And let's say, too, I thought the Bills did a good job on the 3 receivers.
Yeah.
There were not a lot of plays where I'm like, wow, this is Higgins running wide open. Or, I mean, you know, I was going to have this later, but I'll do it now. Kyer Elam in the third quarter made Jamar Chase's life miserable because there was a sequence where he just beat the bejesus out of him. While now the Bengals didn't seem to want to go to Elam's direction. They were working the offense the other side. But Elam was just physical, pounding him, you know, hitting him. And I saw there was one play I thought Chase got a little annoyed at it. You know, so I thought Elam had a decent game. I thought Dane Jackson had a decent game. This was not about the guys on the outside. The problem for the Bills was the guys in the middle and the guys up front. The D-line was just about totally ineffective in this game. It wasn't terrible. You know, there were a few pressures, but there were just no individual winning plays by the front 4, just about the whole game. And the other thing the Bengals did real well when it came to the run game that I was very impressed with, they would get to the line of scrimmage and you'd count numbers. All right, it's 6 offensive linemen, 5 offensive linemen, and a tight end versus 7 in the box for the Bills. That should be a win. What they would do is they would say, all right, you know, the Bills may have 7 in the box, but that weak side linebacker in that end on the side where we're not going to run the play, we're not going to worry about those 2 guys. And I'm going to pull my 2 linemen who are over there over the other side, and now my numbers go from 6-on-7 to a 6-on-5 advantage. And the offensive line didn't block well. Like there are a lot of one-on-ones where I'm like, that wasn't a great block, that wasn't really well executed. But they kept on having numbers, so it didn't matter. You know, you just had space to run to, and they were able to find a running game that way.
Joe Mixon was going untouched, and it had nothing to do with how great the Bengals played up front. Like you said, the numbers advantage was just so great all game. This wasn't like a first play of the game thing.
It was the whole game.
Even that last drive where everyone and their mama knew that the Bengals were running the ball, and they still couldn't stop them. They did a phenomenal job of getting the numbers advantages, like you said. Because in the run game, at that level, everyone's physical enough to be able to, you know, stop the run.
Even the third string tackle that they might have put on the field, if I have leverage on them and I have more numbers, I'm going to win anyway.
It's a numbers game at that level. So the Bengals down after down. And it wasn't like a lot of it. Some of the plays were, you know, to the outside, but some of them were just right down Broadway. And it's like, let's go. You want to play football? I'm going to show you football with my 235-pound back. P. Ryan ain't no little dude either. I'm in the snow. I know you guys don't want to tackle in this. And we're getting you 6-7 yards downfield, full head of steam. And by the end of the game, the Bills tackling suffered because, I'm not trying to tackle these big dudes down after down. The receivers aren't small either. Jamar Chase is a hoss. T. Higgins is a big dude. Hayden Hurst got the ball one time. He big too.
Did you see the 3rd and 1 run after Burrow had done the sneak that wasn't long enough and they ran outside? Chase planted. Jamar Chase, the receiver, planted Shaq Lawson to basically give Cincinnati the edge. So, yeah, their receivers are just as good blockers as some tight ends in the NFL.
Just phenomenal with how the Bengals took the game to the Bills in that part of the game. Because this whole week we're like, oh, how are the Bills going to be able to stop the passing attack? Can they affect Joe Burrow? Well, the Bengals said, you know what, we don't want to do none of that. It's snowing out. Let's go play football like they did in the 80s and hit you right in the mouth.
We'll just pound you, yeah. And now 2 points or 3 more points I want to make to kind of close out the defensive side here. Number one, you brought up tackling. Tackling was bad in this game. There was a play where Trey White was the end of the first half. P. Ryan got a little throw out of the backfield, and I don't know what Trey was doing. He just kind of watched him walk right by.
Business decision.
Exactly, and that might have been it. But end of first half, though, still a game. The real big problem for me, though, and this isn't necessarily poor play, well, I guess it is, but how many times in this game did you see Mixon or P. Ryan make contact with Milano or Edmonds? And it was primarily those two guys. They might make contact at the 30, but the runner goes down to 35. They made contact at the 27, the runner goes down to 31. They were not able to finish tackles too many times in this game, and it made such a big difference because, instead of having the Bengals in 2nd and 8, now it was 2nd and 4. And this happened, beyond the numbers game, even when you had an opportunity where a linebacker filled the hole, they'd make the tackle and then end up on their back as the running back out 3 or 4 more yards.
Offenses love to be on schedule, and if I can stop you at 2nd and 8, you're not really on schedule.
Yeah.
But if you're on schedule at 2nd and 2, or you get a first down, that helps them out so much. And it's so discouraging to see when your 2 best tacklers on the team, where you would like to think your linebackers are.
Milano is definitely that. Edmonds, I don't know, but Milano for sure.
When you're catching instead of bringing the pain to them, that's a huge issue. And look, I get it. They're human. They were down. It was cold. Up front, they were getting whooped. They were getting off of blocks, and Mixon's right there. So I understand a lot of that stuff is going on. But at the end of the day, the film don't lie, and that's what happened time after time in the second half.
People talked about how the Bengals ran at Taron Johnson a lot. And I don't know if the implication was that Taron's a liability. I disagree.
Right.
I've seen him have runs come at him and fill holes just fine. To me, what I think the Bengals did here was kind of two-pronged. Number one, if you run at Taron Johnson, you're running away from Matt Milano. Like we said, he's the best tackler, so you're kind of taking him out of the primary part of the run fit. The second thing is that Taron Johnson's best attribute is coming in from 15 yards wide somewhere like a bleeping missile and helping out in the run game. Well, if you run at him, Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano have great qualities. That is not one of them. So you're taking away the guy who can help out and become an extra defender in the run game by coming wide, by running at him. So, again, give the Bengals credit for the scheme in that spot.
Physics took over. Hey, Taron Johnson is, like I said last week, he's like 195. Granted, he plays much bigger than that, and he's not an issue. Having said that, physics took over. Bengals offensive linemen are like 300 pounds. That's a 100-pound difference. I don't care who you are. They're going to win 10 times out of 10.
So that was the run game issue. And then with the pass game, again, I thought the D-backs, for the most part, played fairly well. However, there were 3 plays that I want to talk about, and you'll be able to break these down a little better than me, where there appeared to be busts that largely changed the game. First one was the Jamar Chase touchdown. Taron Johnson blitzing from the nickel. It looked like to me Dean Marlowe from the safeties coming down to replace Taron and basically cover his man, which was Chase. And then he ends up wide open in the middle of the field. What happened after that from what you saw?
Well, the triangle in that play, Dean Marlowe, Tremaine Edmonds, and then Jordan Poyer, were all kind of just like
Poyer's at the deep pin.
The deep middle, and they were all kind of wrong. So basically, pre-snap, like you said, Marlowe was replacing Taron Johnson in that area of the field. Probably should have carried the seam, but that didn't happen.
Carried Chase a little further down the field.
So error number 1. Error number 2, Tremaine Edmonds is like 5 yards down the field in a zone pressure. I need you to back up a little bit and get in some window because, like, I don't care. Like, there was no other throw that he can affect on that part of the field.
And he ended up irrelevant on that play.
And then Jordan Poyer, he had the least of the mess up on that play, but still, Joe Burrow, once again, excellent with his eyes. He hit as soon as he gets the ball, he looks to his right, and then you'll see Jordan Poyer run to that side of the field.
And turn his back on the middle of the field.
And now it is the most wide open touchdown that Jamar Chase has probably scored since 2nd grade. So 3 guys not in alignment on that play, opposite to what the Bengals did all game. Walk-in touchdown for Chase.
Yeah, and with Poyer, it appears he's got deep middle by himself in a cover 1. He turned his back on the middle of the field. I mean, you would think that's a big no-no. Obviously, Jordan Poyer's way better at this than me, but,
It's not that it's a big no-no. It's just that he probably expects for the pressure to get home because when I'm making my decision as a safety and I'm blitzing,
I know there's a blitz.
I know there's a blitz coming. I imagine if it wasn't a blitz, he probably would have stayed in his paddle a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But he assumes the pressure's going to get home. Nonetheless, I thought he left a little early anyways, but that was probably his thing.
It's a fair assumption, though.
Yeah.
There's a blitz on, and you want that blitz to win. Second big play was the second touchdown. Hayden Hurst, 3rd and 7. People have seen this one a lot. There's a pump fake to Jamar Chase and what looks like a screen. everybody wearing red and blue, chases Jamar Chase, and Hurst is wide open down the field. We think this was a Jordan Poyer big-time mistake. Why?
Yeah, just because he triggers when Matt Milano and Trey White already did so, and coming from where he is at depth, there's no reason for you to trigger on that play.
Because Trey White and Matt Milano are already on top of Chase.
And we don't need 3 people on 1.
Yeah.
And the only reason as to why I would need my safety up there affecting that play is if it was man, but if you look at the play, that does not look like man whatsoever because Matt Milano gets out on the snap, which shows that he's not covering anybody.
He's covering his space.
He's covering his space, exactly. So that's just bad eyes. And Jordan Poyer has seen that play 10,000 times in his career. You run stalk and go from middle school all the way up to obviously the NFL. It happens to the best of them, though. Even guys in the NFL make mistakes, and that wasn't an ability play. That wasn't Leslie Frazier's play. That's just a guy not executing his 111.
Yeah, and then the frustrating part is that Jordan Poyer's been compromised physically all year. This was a spot where he was compromised mentally. Like you said, look, one bad play, but it was a killer. The third one, to me, the last time the Bills were really kind of in the game, it's 3rd and 10, Bengals on the Bills 40, third quarter, 17-10 game. So it's a one-score game, and if you just stop there, it's probably a punt, even though they're on the plus side of the field. Bills again run a blitz with Taron Johnson coming out of the nickel. Hayden Hurst, now it was a 3-receiver look, but it was 2 receivers and Hurst attached to the formation. Hurst gets a chip on Taron to kind of delay the blitz enough, and then just leaks out. Matt Milano at the snap is up on the line of scrimmage as if simulating a blitz. And then on the snap, he basically books down the hash mark and gets 10, 15 yards downfield, gets depth. The problem is that when he stops running, he and Jaquan Johnson are like 3 yards apart from each other. So now, like we talked about before, you don't need 3-on-1. You've got 2 guys in the same space. I'm going to assume, because Jaquan Johnson, the inexperienced guy, that it was his fault. But now there's no one on Hurst once he leaked out. And, yeah, I know Jaquan Johnson missed the tackle, but, you know, with the way those 2 guys are running, the only chance Jaquan Johnson has to make that tackle is by laying out and hoping to, you know, just wipe Hurst out before he gets to the first down marker. Hurst hurdles him, gets a first down. Bengals score a touchdown. Game was pretty much over from there. Does it seem like Jaquan Johnson was the wrong there or no?
Yeah, I mean, I understand it's 3rd and 10, so you want to get depth. I get that. Having said that, though, you got to look at your threats on the field, and you want to close as much space as possible. And when you got a big fella like that coming out of the, not backfield, but, you know, chipping and getting out, I would like to close that space a little bit. Maybe he underestimated how fast Hayden Hurst is. And how Jaquan,
okay, yeah.
Like, maybe he underestimated Hayden Hurst's athleticism, overestimated his own abilities to get to the ball carrier. Because open field tackling is obviously the hardest skill outside of throwing a football in football. And the way you combat that is by closing the space. And boy, there was a whole lot of space between those 2.
It was so easy. I know, and so again, it seems like Jaquan was in the wrong there. And look, at some point there were going to be some issues with being down to your 4th string safety at that point. And, you know, the Chase touchdown and that play, to me, I didn't see a lot of other ones. You know, I thought Dean Marlowe mostly was okay. Jaquan Johnson was, I mean, he's a 4th string safety. You get what you get out of that.
But, I mean, in the playoffs, those are the plays that matter.
Yep.
I mean, you think about the great plays that Matt Milano had on the sack early in the game on 3rd down, the great punch-out to Jamar Chase that didn't end up being a touchdown. Those are the plays that win you games in the playoffs. I mean, you think about Gabe Davis dropping a pass on the on that deep ball down the left sideline. You think about all the little plays that affect games. And look, I get it. Those were only 3 plays. But in games where it's win or go home, good on good, those are the plays that send you home.
Yeah. So, all right. That will be the finale of the Bills season. Anything else that missed that we want to hit on here at all or no?
Nah, they just got beat flat out up front, both sides. And shout out to the Bengals because that team's a lot better than even I thought they were.
Yeah, I mean, I walked away from this game. You know, you see the Bills on a daily basis, and you know the coaches are good, and you know Josh Allen's good. And in most games, they're better than the team on the other side. And you think, wow, this must be awesome. The Bengals were a whole new level of both. And I will say, like, if it's unfair to compare Burrow to Allen in this game, because I don't see Burrow all the time, and neither do you. It felt like this was a really good Burrow game, you know? And this was obviously not a really good Josh game. So although I walk away thinking, wow, Burrow's like 8 times the quarterback Josh is, you know that, like, it was kind of dictated by this one particular afternoon that made it different.
Yeah, I know Sean McDermott said in his presser at the end of the year that you're who you are, that your last game of the season is who you are. I get that, and that's coach speak. Having said that, though, the resume that they've both built up, they are both phenomenal quarterbacks. And Joe Burrow was going up against the Bills defense, and then vice versa. It wasn't like they were both playing the same team.
Right.
So like that has to matter in a sport like football.
For sure. All right, we appreciate everybody who followed along with us all year. Hopefully we'll do it again next year. You never know in television, but we'll try. It was a good time for us. Hope you liked it too. He's Carl Jones. I'm Thad Brown. Thanks for watching and listening to Let's Talk Ball. Click on something else here at RochesterFirst.com.